Welcome back to AM Northwest. A new documentary shines a light on the most decorated American cross-country skier in history, Jessie Diggins. Threshold follows the gold medalist and two-time world champion over one extraordinary season, from training in Oregon to racing on the world stage, revealing not just the physical and mental toll of the sport, but her ongoing struggles with an eating disorder.
From a young age, I've had this relentless desire to be perfect.
Jessie Diggins!
This voice would say, you have to be willing to suffer like nobody else. And even when I knew this is going to kill me, I kept going.
We welcome the filmmakers of Threshold, brothers Lars and Torsten Brinkema. Good morning, you two.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Thanks for having
Why
us.
focus on her? I mean, I can see she's clearly talented, but for you as filmmakers, what was the attraction?
Yeah, so Torsten and I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and both of us had posters of Jessie growing up. We idolized. He was a Minnesota legend, so it was an easy connection to Jessie early on in filming. And yeah, she's just such an incredible athlete and advocate that we wanted to follow and tell her story.
What was it like then to meet and be with your hero in this personal way? I mean, that's a huge connection.
Yeah, and it kind of all started in Bend, Oregon in 2023. We got invited to a training camp by Ben Ogden, who was another athlete on the team that I raced against when I was competing in my ski days. And we kind of touched down on the snow with the team, and they realized that we could keep up with them with cameras in hand and that we wouldn't really get in the way filming. And I think we just developed a really strong bond with Jessie at that camp. And I think, you know, the rest is history.
And then the two of you are brothers, you work together, but does that mean then you have like you kind of know each other's secondhand language? There's sometimes no need to speak, you know what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think especially when filming, that helped a ton because we spent a whole winter on the road with the ski team. And I think Lars and I have this chemistry as brothers where we don't necessarily have to tell each other to do something. We kind of know it instinctively. So I think that definitely helps. That said, you know, spending 4 months on the road with your brother in the same hotel room can be a lot at times, but yeah, we made it work.
That's great. Tell me about Jessie herself, because she's been very open about her pains and her struggles, because it's a lot. And she talks about an eating disorder, which can be all-consuming. I mean, it really can. And then she's a perfectionist, clearly, right? What did you learn about her, and what comes across, you think, in the film?
Yeah, I think the most interesting part of the story to me is that the things that make Jessie such an incredible athlete and an incredible person can be flipped into these things that maybe make an eating disorder thrive, or perfection can take a hold of her in a dangerous way. So being able to balance those things and see how they play out when you're in front of all these cameras and in front of the eyes of these European nations, I think it's such an interesting balance of what makes her tick and what can make that struggle really thrive.
It seems to me like it brings out the struggle that athletes have with mental health. And I mean, we can take so many things that happen in this year's Winter Games that are happening, where someone is put on this pedestal way up here and they fail or they crash and they burn, and then everyone's against them. And I don't know how young people survive that.
Right. I think we've definitely seen it at these games with, you know, figure skating, alpine skiing, kind of everything. We hold these really young athletes up to standards that sometimes are just not possible. And then we destroy them in the media when they don't do well. And it's the athletes, you know, could start to think, well, if I don't win, will people still love me?
Right.
And that's something that Jessie told us from the very start, is there's this internal battle with athletes where they're pushing themselves to limits that are beyond what we can comprehend. And yet on the other side of that coin, if they don't perform to their highest, they could be ridiculed. And I think that's certainly plays a role in the movie, is the media's eye on Jessie and how that plays out throughout the season.
Oh, absolutely. There's also, for female athletes, the pressure to have a certain amount of weight, and yet you need to have the energy to do what you need to do to win, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, one thing that we realized throughout this filming is that athletes' bodies come in so many shapes and sizes, and there's not one perfect body for any sport, and cross-country skiing included. You can be an amazing skier and look way different than your competition, and yet it's a sport where your body is on the line for people to see. Everyone's racing in these skin-tight race suits, and so it is a very sensitive thing. And I think the media definitely plays a role in the way that they talk about bodies, and especially women's bodies on this stage. And so we are here to say that, like, it doesn't really matter what you look like. You can compete with the world's best.
Absolutely. Executive produced by Patrick Dempsey. How did you get him on board? Like, that just comes out of the blue for me.
Yeah, it's a funny story. So we grew up not in Hollywood and didn't have many Hollywood connections. And when we started following Jessie, we heard that Patrick is a big supporter of the U.S. ski team, a big fan of Jessie and Michaela Schifrin. And so about 4 months into filming, we had this idea to have Jessie DM Patrick Dempsey on Instagram to see if he'd be interested in helping out. And he responded within a minute or two and said, send the boys to Maine. And so we met in his vacation home, and yeah, he loved
That's so, that is so great. What a smart move. You guys are smart. That is awesome. All right, we want to tell everyone that Threshold premieres Monday on Peacock. Thank you both so much.
Thanks for having us, Helen.
You bet. All right, we'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.